welcome to Human Ascension with Ellie. Well, congratulations to us. Today is, I believe, episode number 50, and I have really enjoyed talking to you these 49 weeks or so. I thought to celebrate today and the mark of the 50th episode, I would invite a guest to the show, and I decided to invite Jeremy Sherman. Now, getting a bio from Jeremy so that I could introduce him was not easy. I asked him a number of times to provide me with some biographical information, and what he sent me was a bit of a puzzle. So I went on a search, and this is what I found. Jeremy is a PhD and MPP. He has 2 blogs on Psychology Today, and he works with a neuroscientist and biological anthropologist at Harvard and Berkeley, and has been doing so for around 26 years. He is a researcher who is looking at the origins of life all the way from cradle to what he calls grave. And I think he means this grave situation that we currently find ourselves in. Jeremy is a combination of serious, academic, and tongue-in-cheek satirist, I think you could say. And Jeremy has also written books. One of them is called What's Up with A-Holes? And I thought I'd take a look at that book as well. The way he introduces that book is to place absolutists into kind of a broad set of, subcategories, which include a-holes, know-it-alls, difficult people, buttheads, narcissists, gaslighters, dark triad personalities, psychopaths, brain-dead swellheads, tyrants, bad bosses, domineering relatives, and nasty exes. That pretty much sweeps it up, I think. Jeremy also has a YouTube channel called Trying Beings, where he talks about these absolutist type personalities in the context of politics, world affairs, and just dealing with things like narcissism or difficult people, how to be able to communicate and have relationships or not have relationships with difficult people without becoming one yourself. So trying to navigate that minefield that we often find ourselves in, particularly these days. So let's have a look at how my discussion with Jeremy Sherman went, and I really hope you enjoy today's episode. Hello, Jeremy, and welcome to the show.
Nice to be here.
It's really lovely. It's really lovely to have you here. And I was thinking about how we would begin our discussion, and then the most obvious thing actually appeared underneath your name, which was your title, Orthodox Ironist. So I thought I'm going to start there. What are you, and what are you doing here?
I came up with that on a whim just now. It's true, and it's also paradoxical because ironists are kind of the opposite of orthodox. What is an ironic situation? An ironic situation is where the outcome is the reverse of what you expected. They are tragic sometimes. Like if you slip on a banana peel and crack your head open. They're also comic. Like if you slip on a banana peel and get up and get on with yourself. I do origins of life research, starting from simple chemistry and the universal it's probably the first law of everything, which is that everything falls apart. So called the second law of thermodynamics, but it's really the first law of everything. And I have to explain how you end up with trying beings, that is organisms that are struggling for their own existence, from nothing but that. I don't get to posit anything based on my impressions of the world. I work in that area. That's one of the areas I work in. And as a result, I am an anti-fundamentalist. I have a devout sense that the right attitude towards life is ironic, or as I would call it, dirony. It's dire irony. That is, life has a tragic comic aspect to it, and has from the beginning, 3.8 billion years ago. That is, it's the nature of life to be doing iffy guesswork. And that it's the nature of humans to want to try to minimize that iffy guesswork through educated bets or tarot or whatever else one would come up with. And that's also part of the tragic comedy. That is, I want the absolute truth, and I'll die trying to get it. That is, I'm not going to, that's the challenge as I see it for being a human. But I came up with that really 2 minutes before we got on the call. I'll now probably use it. I do that. I collect ideas. So just to as a little context for who the heck I am, I call myself a cradle to grave researcher, from the origins of life to our grave situation. And our grave situation, as I see it, is grounded in this very human appetite to want to claim that we figured it out, that we solved reality and now have the formula, and our formulas clash. Lots of people have formulas. Lots of people have had revelations or followed someone who had revelations, and that appetite is strong in all of us, from my perspective. And I think it gets really dangerous when it gets out to absolutism. Absolutism, the term originally meant dissolved away from, which means that you are uninfluenceable. You've got the truth. So an absolutist is a dangerous thing. That is, they're literally incorrigible. Nothing could correct them. A guy like Trump. So my second to last book was with Columbia University Press. It's called Neither Ghost Nor Machine, The Emergence and Nature of Selves. So it's an academic book. And my last book is What's Up with Assholes, How to Spot and Stop Them Without Becoming One.
Without becoming one. And actually, you know what? When you were talking about this absolutism, that's the very first thing I thought of, was that extra bit of the title of your book. Because when you're dealing with someone who is an absolutism, the tendency is almost to withdraw and become one yourself in order to prove the opposite.
Right.
And it never works, does it?
Well, it perpetuates the problem. So as I see it, a cult is just it's the plural for absolutist or asshole, either one. I think of them as synonymous, and I don't like the term asshole. I don't think it's accurate. It's vulgar, which makes it difficult to use when you're trying to train children not to become one. But beyond that, it's actually very vague. And it's spit in anger by often, as you say, by a counter absolutist. That is, we have cults and counter cults. Catholicism had become a cult. Protestantism becomes a counter cult. Communism was a cult. Libertarianism is a counter cult. That is, we tend to react by taking an overstep in the right direction. We need to find this balance. That's what ironists do. Is they know that life is iffy guesswork, and they're watching out for perils on opposite sides. But we take this overstep in the right direction, and then you end up with a counter cult. And so my prediction out of Trump, unfortunately, is that we'd have a counter-Trump movement that would be equal. It would be as dogmatic. One of the things that's been interesting to me is to notice how many people will give up a dogma but not the dogmatism. They'll flip it to the opposite side. But dogmatism is fun. Absolutism is fun. It's really satisfying. It's really comfortable. Why would you want to give that up if you've gotten addicted to it? It is my better term than asshole is herobotic. That is, you robotically play hero. And I do find it fascinating that heroin was so named because it makes everybody who takes it feel like a hero. So I think that Trumpism is very much like heroin that way, or any kind of absolutism.
The research that I do is different to what you do. Well, I look at lots of the same things and some different things, but one thing that I definitely have discovered is the way that language seems ironic. The English language, some of the words appear to have been chosen to generalize something that comes from long ago. Like, for example, the very first god that was considered in certain belief system was a god called Atum, which can be brought all the way down to this concept of the atom being the smallest thing, which they've discovered it's not. Adam, or Adam being the first human.
Right.
But Atum came from Nun, the primordial waters, which is called Nun, N-U-N, which is Nun, N-O-N-E, which is before anything. And so little things like that are really sort of other examples of that.
So I'm fascinated by contronyms, which are words that mean opposite things. To think means to know, to think means to not know, to wonder. Wonder means to dig the wonder of it all and not wonder. There are lots of those, but Adam is a particularly interesting one. It relates because it means indivisible. Uncuttable is what it means.
Turns out it's wrong.
Okay, right. But think about the appetite for this claim of oneness. That is, I am one with the universe. I am one with God. God is indivisible. I argue that the only thing consistent about an absolutist is their claim of consistency. Everything else is completely free to run wild and hypocritical. But as long as they say, I have perfect integrity, and I get that from Trump trolls. They tell me that they have perfect integrity. It's a major red flag for me whenever anybody claims they have perfect integrity. It's not like that. For me, integrity is checks and balances. My entire body, or the government body, is a fragile system that is only sustained by checks and balances. Things keeping each other in that is opposite forces, keeping each other in check. It's what they call an infinite game. It's a game you don't want to end. You want to keep it going, and the way you keep it going is it's what they call alternating dominance. That is, this side's ahead, this side's ahead, this side. So that's another piece of the irony, is that I actually live comfortably because of my lucky circumstances with a lot of doubt and anxiety. My idea of equanimity is to be equally mildly anxious about opposite perils. For example, that I'm too assertive or not assertive enough for the given situation. That's equanimity for me. It's not oneness. It's being of two minds comfortably.
Isn't that just self-awareness, being aware of, having to balance yourself?
So self-awareness would be a broader term. It's way more complicated. Introspection is way more complicated than that. But I would say that it's a difference between second guessing and second yesing. So there are one of the interesting things about narcissist as a word is it was named after a guy who couldn't stop looking at himself. You can't get a narcissist to look at themselves for love or money. Why? Because they're looking at an idealization of themselves,
physically.
And so it's an interesting kind of splitting where they both play God and play God's fiercest defender. It's almost a cult of one, where they're God, and anybody who lashes out at God deserves all the wrath you can bring to them. No deed too dirty for a saint like me. So you get this interesting pairing. You can call that a kind of self-awareness, but it's anything but introspection. And introspection is very complicated. That is, which aspect of me is looking at which aspect of me? Am I looking inward, or am I imagining myself outside myself looking at me? It's complicated.
So do you know what? I'm glad that you mentioned the God thing, because when you and I were having a chat about you coming on,
yes,
you told me a little bit about your past. And I think I remember you saying that you actually lived in a commune which was highly spiritual, and you were a highly spiritual person. And, we do a bit of woo-woo around here. And so, but then you kind of transitioned into, can you tell us about that?
So I'm very spirited. I am not spiritual. That is, in my entire work, from Origins of Life forward, I am not positing what I will argue is a wild card trump card. That is, I don't get to claim a supernatural realm where, if you just look around the world, there are all sorts of people who believe all sorts of things about what happens there. It's a wild card. but it's also a trump card. It's super, and it prevails over this one. That's my line of work. I have plenty of spiritual friends, but in my line of work, I'm only dealing with the natural world. And I have to explain everything about us from the ground up, from that physical, chemical ground up, in terms of it. And I have to have continuity. I can't have any hand waving. I can't say, well, a miracle happens. I have to actually explain it all from the ground up. So I'm extremely spirited as a person. I did live for 7 years on a spiritual commune. And when I was there, it's not quite a cult. It's still around. A bunch of my buddies are from there. It was 1,400 hippies it was the world's largest hippie commune. It was in Summertown, Tennessee, which is in the South here in the United States. And it had a spiritual leader. And I adored it. And I adored the relief from anxiety I had. It was like climbing on an express train. So I was extremely cultish about it, and I think many of us were. But you could leave easily, and you could be ironic. You could make fun of it. It wasn't all earnest and serious. But there was a pretentious joy in feeling like I had solved reality and was out to save the world. And that has been a very interesting lab for me, as is everything that goes on in me. I also had 10 years of 4-day-a-week Freudian analysis starting at age 8. So there's a way, and I didn't hear anything Freudian because the guy didn't talk. He's a Freudian. But I did end up with a degree of inurement, a certain kind of shamelessness about the stuff that goes on with me. And I finally left that therapy. I did a 5-year spate when I was younger, and then another one that ended at 35. When I got over the question of what's wrong with me and got interested in the question, what's up with us? And that's been my issue all along. So I end up being a lab for it. Nothing human is foreign to me. I do everything, to some degree or another, I do everything that humans do. I've got the whole human repertoire, and I'm tracking my own narcissism, which is why I can talk about how I totally felt the relief that you get from the sense that you have aligned with the oneness. I
actually
unpack that,
think that this is something that's fundamental to one of the reasons why I really wanted to have a chat with you, because I've watched it. I found you because one of my viewers sent me a link with something to do with, if you feel a certain way about something, here's what you can do about it. But then there was more to your channel than just that. And what I liked was this concept, you and I talked about it as well, about almost like the psychology of using your belief system to relieve yourself, believing in things. And you see, I'm a prophecy chaser, so I'm here because of a prophecy. And so it was something that just resonated with me, and I wanted to hear your perspective, because your channel, Trying Beings, is very much about looking at how our belief system and where it came from and what it really means and how to utilize it and so please explain.
Yeah, good. So I have a rabbi friend who I was talking to last week. I have several friends who pore over the Tao. I have great admiration for the I Ching. I have great admiration for the Tarot as a palimpsest, a way of stirring yourself to think beyond your thinking. Those are fine vehicles for that. I once got a cab ride in New Orleans from a guy who told me that he went to church not because he particularly believed what he was getting out of church, but it was the only chance this guy had, young black guy, to wonder about things bigger than the immediate. So I get that, and I am not someone who argues. You could say I'm really on the fence. That is, I feel great ambivalence about this human need for the affirmation of feeling like they have found the source, and all that's left is to interpret it. And there's a lot to interpret in there. For example, I have a Calvinist friend who says the Bible is the word of God. We all interpret it different ways. I have friends in Indonesia who says there's only one God and humans come up with different ways to honor and pray to him. I'm also aware of the clashes, the holy wars, and holy war is another one of those interesting terms. It's an oxymoron. That's where you get nothing, no deed too dirty for a saint like me. So it's a really dangerous thing. So the best I've come up with so far is something I call off-jerking. I've given it several names. I call it optimal illusion, safe escapism, this distinction between relief and belief. I know that I feel like we've really got to pay attention to what's going on in the natural world, climate change and the like, and that we've just about used up the capacity of the Earth for vanity projects. And so my interest is in this kind of safe escapism where, and I think people do it all the time, we just haven't had a name for what this is. I'm trying to figure out how to exercise and manage my vanity and how we could do that. So here's an example of how I do it. I watch movies and I identify with the heroes and think that surely I would do what they did. And I love the happy ever after endings that affirm me. I masturbate. All of these are kinds of things that people do that are venting that appetite that humans have to play the know-it-all jerk. That is to be the authority, to be the exception, to be the one who's trying to solve reality. I've been to death metal concerts. I've been to a Trump rally. I had to go. You know, it was on my bucket list to see fascism.
Oh, that was you, right? Okay,
yeah, that's right. That's right. So the only difference I saw between them was what happened in the parking lot afterwards. After the death metal concert, it's all cosplay and everybody chanting lyrics that they're not thinking about and feeling like a badass and all that sort of stuff. The only difference was what happened in the parking lot afterwards. After the death metal concert, they zipped up and got back to reality. After the Trump show, they acted like what they had witnessed was more real than reality. That is, from my perspective, it's not how far out you go, it's whether you remember to come back. Self-love is important, but get a room and don't let it go to your head. And don't turn government into your vanity project. It's taking our flights of fancy, but always with a return ticket to reality secure in our heart pockets. So for me, the difference comes down to this. I have great appreciation for what I would call honest relievers. They're not true believers. These are people who say, I relieve in my spiritual practice, or I relieve in my movie going or pornography or whatever, in spectator sports. I believe in scientific progress as a way of getting more realistic. Now, I know there's a whole other school of thought which says, yeah, but science hasn't solved everything, and there's another realm, and once again, we're into the wild card, trump card arena. They say it in all sorts of directions. They're revelations, the truth that's been revealed to them. Obviously, the world's full of clashing revelations. We know that. So I'm trying to figure out a way that we can have our cake and eat it too without getting eaten up in the process. And for me, that's the heart of it, is that capacity. One way to think about it is this. Imagine one clearly gets more buzz out of a Batman movie if they come away thinking that Batman loves them and that anybody who attacks them is attacking Batman and therefore is in violation of the moral edicts of the universe. That's clearly more of a buzz. You know, for people, the Trump rally goers to come away and feel like they've seen something more real than reality, that's a bigger buzz. I grant that. I'm asking us to sacrifice that for the sake of the planet. That is, I'm asking us to figure out how to say, I believe in television. One way I say it is, I'm an atheist, but don't get me wrong. I'm as delusional as the next guy. I just vent it differently. I don't go to church. I don't have that. I do it these other ways. It could be spectator. It could be anything. I call it egotainment. That is a way to build our confidence. Because, and this gets back to the thing about language. Sorry, I'll say one last thing, and then I'm really going to stop.
That's right. You're let's talk. That's the reason why you're here.
It happens. It happens occasionally that I stop. It's rare. You gotta look for it.
I have.
Please.
2 different things I want to ask you about.
Good.
The first one is easy. The second one, I sent you a video. Did you see it?
No, I didn't see it yet, but I'm sorry, I forgot to see it. Oh,
because I was dying to know what your viewpoint would be, but I'm going to summarize it, and I'll ask you.
That will be enough for me, I bet.
But the first one, because they're totally different things, and the second one is something that's going to be right off your radar, and that's the reason why I'm curious about what your view is. The first one is the election. We've got obviously winners and losers.
Yeah,
there are people who. I know that there's theories out there that Donald Trump didn't actually win the election. I'm going to put that aside because that's something that people can squabble about in some other way. But for the purposes of our discussion, you've got the ones who voted that appeared to be winners. They might be deep into the MAGA, and that's the reason why they voted. Or they may have just voted for change, and he represents change. But they voted and they won. And then you have the ones that voted for Kamala Harris and they lost.
Yes.
What do you think is happening on either side of that from your PhD perspective?
The PhD means nothing. What I have is
the things that you
from my perspective. Yeah,
talk about
and it is just my perspective. But I talk to them both a lot. One of the things we're seeing, this is not about me talking to them, but is that there's Trump's disapproval rating has gone way down, and his approval rating has gone way up. And I talk to the glotaholics who are the Trump people who I talk to are mostly Trump trolls. Not all. I have some great conversations with thoughtful people who are Trump supporters. I have some good buddies. For example, a Silicon Valley entrepreneur who I talk to every few weeks. But I think of those people, both for strategic and accurate reasons. My sense of it is that they are people who have gotten addicted to playing hero, and typically because it's an advantage. Like I said earlier, it's quite the buzz. But also because they might feel like they've lost for so long that at this point they'll take anything that makes them feel like a winner. And they don't even care what it is. But the hypocrisy is astonishing. I mean, we conceded the election. The liberals conceded the election almost immediately, which bothers certain liberals certainly. But in the meantime, the Trumpists talk like we have Trump derangement syndrome. It's one of their favorite buzzwords.
Yeah, that's a favorite.
Which means that anybody who disagrees with me is mentally ill, and I get to say so from a position of authority. And mostly what I'm hearing from them these days is get over yourself, which is just blatant hypocrisy, given that they denied the election from the get-go. In the meantime, I've got a bunch of
liberals. They still are denying 2020. Yeah.
More than ever. Yeah, because they won this time. So that I think that Trump ran on nothing but pretending he always wins, no matter what. And that is a hugely appealing message, and that we've never heard it so down to its essence. That is, I think of him as the first demagogue. That is, he is demonstrating that you can claim unearned credit till the cows come home. You can do it. And that's what I think is the most dangerous thing he's unleashed on the world, that you can be completely dumb and claim that you're the genius. So I hear from these people quite a bit. I hear from liberals as well, because they tend to be my audience. As one friend of mine, a vice president at Eli Lilly, the pharmaceutical company, once said, Jeremy, I know you cut off your ponytail, but I still see it, he says. That is, I still look like I'm from Berkeley, and it looks like it. And I speak to them, though I'm also challenging them more than most of the kind of flattering, affirming kinds of things. What I hear from them falls into a few camps. It's hopeless, and I'm proud of being able to see through its hopelessness, that there's no talking to these people. There are people who say we've got to double down on what we've been doing, because the arc of the universe bends towards justice, which I don't buy. The arc of the universe doesn't care. That's my sense of it. And then I hear from this wonderful group of people who are weaning themselves off of hope as a fuel. It's a very unreliable fuel. And have turned their attention towards the curiosity that I am beckoning from them. So, for example, 100 people have got in touch and have joined my free bi-weekly, every other week study group, which is people trying to find better ways to eke out even a thimbleful of curiosity from absolutists, and how also to distinguish between the almost absolutists, who are a little bit curious, and those people who are just absolutists. The Trumpists tend to be, the Trumpists I deal with are mostly absolutists. But I have a friend in Georgia through this group. She got in touch through the meeting. All of her friends are Trumpists, and she says these are lovely people on the side. A lot of people basically treat their absolutism as a side thing. That is, they live their practical lives. They're in reality, but they are off-jerking or enjoying a sense of authority through Trumpism. And I'm arguing that's a dangerous place to do it. Self-love is important. We get a room. Don't circle jerk in the public square to government as your infrastructure as your vanity project. Do it elsewhere. There's much more exciting places to do it these days. The production values are through the roof in movies and TV and video. I mean, why go to government? It's incredibly boring, as you and I will know. So there, that's the issue there. That's how I see them. Yeah.
That, you see, this is the one thing that I think you and I have got very much in common. When I was looking at our channels are entirely different in lots of different ways, but I don't express it the same way that you do, because obviously I come from a different mindset in other ways. But I always describe myself as being a center-left person. But people sometimes don't realize how close to the center I am, because I am looking at both sides and trying to get an understanding of both sides. And then I take things on a case-by-case basis. And so when something happens like this election, I look at it from a perspective of trying to understand this side and trying to understand that side. And I was very interested in your viewpoint, because you seem to sit in a very similar understanding of looking at everything as I do. And that means that we're never going to be very popular, because of the fact that there's always going to be disagreement from somewhere about that, especially when people have very absolutist type of mindset.
I do want to catch one thing that you just said about the similarity and difference. So I describe myself as a libertarian socialist, a conservative progressive.
That's interesting, yeah.
And what I mean, this is back to my orthodox irony. That is, I don't actually think anybody is anything but that. We're all trying to figure out what to loosen, what to tighten. We're all trying to figure out what to change and what to keep the same. The rest is just grandstanding. That is, there's plenty of debate about what to loosen and what to tighten. And notice what I'm doing there. That's that equanimity that comes from, I think of it as like driving a winding road in the dark of night, with all sorts of cars around me, and backseat drivers, you could say a libertarian and a socialist one, talking in my ears, telling me, watch out for the perils on this side, watch out for the perils on that side. And I'm in the middle trying to watch out for the perils on both sides. So it's, in a way, it's the opposite of centrist. which in the United States, a lot of people.
You see, that's the
in a way, it's the same as the centrist.
It's kind of the language difference. But of course, I'm also in Australia, and so I look at it from an outside perspective, just the same way that when I lived outside of Australia, I looked at Australia from an outside perspective. I learned more about my country by leaving the country for 20 years than I did when I was ever in it. Can I throw something completely unrelated into the mix? Because sorry if you heard a bang, that was my microphone. I'm very expressive because this is just, we're going to come back to that because I want people to know where to find that study group. But in the meantime, this is off the wall for you. Anyway, there is this, I sent you a video. It was 2.5 hours long. And it was only a day or so ago. So I'm sorry, I didn't really give you any time to look at it anyway. But it's the second biggest topic apart from politics at the moment in terms of what's right now, what people are thinking about right now in the area that I work in. And I work in the area of all kinds of, mystical, magical things. And that is disclosure, the UFO, UAP phenomenon, whether we are alone or not. And I'm interested in talking to you about this because of your interest in this relationship between belief and relief and chasing prophecies and things like that. And the video that I sent you was a 2.5-hour interview with an Australian reporter by the name of Ross Coulthart, who he was a 60 Minutes host. Yeah. He left 60 Minutes Australia and ended up working for News Nation in the US. He's their special correspondent on all things extraterrestrial, something like that. And he has been sitting on this for 2 years. And then he finally brought out what he calls kind of a whistleblower, except they are not a whistleblower. It's kind of complex. And this is a former Air Force helicopter pilot who now is a private contractor who worked for 30 years in the military in many covert operations. He came across as a very genuine personality when you speak to him, although, it's all television, so you never know. And he said something that I've heard before. And that is that unexpectedly one day when he was doing one of his many missions that it's very compartmentalized and he only knows what he has to know, which is basically there's something to pick up in your helicopter from over here and you have to travel 100 miles and drop it off over there. And so that's what he was doing. He didn't know what he was carrying. It was just something. And he had this profound experience where he felt as though as he was traveling towards it, he felt an overwhelming sense of emotion and love and sorrow, and he didn't know why, and he couldn't stop it, and he's not prone to any kind of things.
I get it.
And he's not overly, and then he felt that it was inside him and it never left. And from that point on, he's understood that we're not alone, and he doesn't know whether it's ET. He thinks it might be more spiritual. I'm dying to know what you think.
Okay, so here's what I think. So I work with astrobiologists. And since I'm doing origins of life research, I'm also, and the thing I didn't mention earlier when I had a brain fart was that the main things that I'm interested in are origins of life, the evolution of language in humans, and what it's like for us to be driving under the influence of language. And included in that is that while there are myriad parasites, you could say that all organisms are parasites, being an asshole is only a human thing. It's got to do with language. So I'm paying lots of attention to our capacity, the anxiety that comes with having language. I think of us as trudging through a mojo-eroding sandstorm of potential threats and possibilities that we can imagine, real and imaginary, but we can conceive of them that no other critter can. So that's very important to me, that we can imagine. We are an incredibly anxious species and don't like to talk about it. We're an incredibly needy species of affirmation, and with language we can get it. We can generate it all sorts of ways. That may seem far afield, but I don't think it is. So
No,
I'm actually interested in astropsychology. What would be true of any intelligent life form in the universe? And by intelligent, I mean symbol competent. I work in biosemiotics. That is, there's a difference between language and other forms of communication and emotion and thought in other organisms. Nonetheless, I think that one of the biggest challenges we face is that emotions are incredibly convincing. Pain and pleasure really are convincing. And one of the things we're up against is, well, I think I called it feality. That is the sense that your feelings are the realest thing. And you see a lot of this in any kind of absolutist. So when you have a breakthrough, what you're getting is breakthrough from anxiety, and you feel like you've seen the light. So it's a revelation from the beginning. And my last video is about the Trumpist wokeness. That is, it's by far the most woke movement we've ever seen in the country, defined generically as I have woken up, seen the light, exited Plato's cave, taken the red pill, and I now have solved reality, and the only mission left is to teach other people, and if they don't buy it, the customer's always wrong. So that appetite would be huge in us. I think it's also huge. It would be huge in any organism that had the capacity for language. Now, I have a different approach to love. I know everybody likes love, but what they mean is it feels good. It's like liking ice cream. And I know that I have tons of friends, just tons from the commune days, who think that love is the answer. And I don't. I think that love is a preference, and that all preferences are relative. And that therefore a strong preference like love has to be paired with hate. That is, if I love equality, I hate inequality. The more I love equality, the more I love my children, the more I would hate to have something happen to them. And I don't want to mince words about this. I don't see, I mean, I see a self-flattering path where I can say I like ice cream and everybody should have all they want. But I don't actually see that as how love works. I think love is the question, not the answer. And I do that with all of these loaded terms. What to tolerate, what not to tolerate, what to love, what not to love. I'm very into the serenity prayer, not because of the God part of it, but because I think we're all dealing with this question: what to assert, when to accommodate. I have the only operational definition I've ever seen for love. It's the same as my definition for addiction. It's doing dedicated work. Of all the things I could do, I'm doing the things that enable the maintenance of something I depend upon. So it's a combination of dedication and dependency. And the only difference between love and addiction from my perspective is our prognosis. Whether we think it's going to turn out well or it can't turn out well.
So can I just clarify one point there,
Sure.
or ask for clarity? Were you saying that if you love something, it means you must also hate something because of the duality? It's necessary for there to be both. That sounds a bit
not because of the duality,
you know.
but because of the preference. Preferences are always relative. The more I like something, the less I like the competition.
So
I
there's
know
always
that
going
there's
to
a
be
way to say. I know there's a way to say. I love my children best, but I love the whole world. Well, anybody can say that. Lots of people do. The Trumpists say that. They're all about love. They're sure that they're loving. They're loving to each other. They're very loving to each other. And my question is what to love and what to not love, what to tolerate, what not to tolerate, what to fight against, what not to fight against.
Okay, so this is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to, later on, when we've finished this, I'm going to badger you. I'm going to badger you to watch that video and then come back and we'll have another chat.
That's fine with me, but I want to tell you that you may not know this about the U.S. system. There's another piece to it that I did catch a nanosecond of it and realized immediately that it was on, is it Newsmax or which
News Nation.
News Nation. Okay, so check this out. In the Soviet Union, and I have some friends from there, there are departments of propaganda. A station like News Nation is very much likely to be like that. And why? Why would that be like that? It is because we need because of threat displacement. I don't know if you've ever done this, but I do it all the time when I get a shot.
That's the kind of thing I was curious about, whether you were going to see it as something else. I mean, I look at it from a different perspective than you.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it, and it's totally fine. I
was very curious about what you thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, life has gotten scary for us humans, and only recently, a bunch of us were. I was extremely confident that things would keep on getting better and better. I mean, I was incredibly naive about that. I thought that everybody would come to their senses and we'd kumbaya, and that the enemies would surrender and all this sort of stuff. We just lost every war that the United States ever won. We just lost the war against monarchy, against racism, the Civil War, against fascism, against communist fascism. We just lost them all. I did not expect this. And a bunch of us, no matter what side you're on, are actually feeling nervous. So threat displacement is fascinating to me. When I get a shot, because I'm a bit of a wimp, I pinch myself here.
You are a wimp.
I wouldn't, if I didn't have arms, I probably would be able to withstand the shot. And I've learned to get my teeth cleaned without the nitrous oxide, even though I love that drug. It's a great drug. But threat displacement is where we're facing things like the global climate crisis, and we'd rather a more convenient catastrophe to deal with. And we'd rather easy answers to that one. So for me, actually, I don't think the abortion debate is about abortion really at all. I think that the anti-abortion people are looking for the cheapest possible way to claim that they're humanists. It's completely, and you can do that simply by, I mean, what's better than, what would be more efficient than opposing other people's abortions? It's a really simple way. And so the treatment of that as a threat by religious entities that didn't even care about it, and it's not even mentioned in the Bible, that's threat displacement to me. So my point about the propaganda channels is, if you are addicted to heroin, the feeling that you're a hero, you are going to need to be, your mojo boosted, an affirmation every night when you watch TV that shows you that you're paying attention to the real issues.
Oh, yeah. Well, we know all of the channels, all of the forums do that.
That's right.
It doesn't
That's
really
right.
matter. And they have a position and they just reinforce it. Yeah.
And that's why I'm so damn unpopular among the liberals, because they're going to their version of it. We've got the My DS Touch and all of these channels that basically talk over and over, like, see, this finally proves it. Their hypocrites were, so you've got Trump mesmerized America, the people who want to be like them, and the people who want to be like him, eternal winners, and the people who just need to revel in the fact that they're not like them, or in the claim that they're not like them. And so one way or another, I'm trying to do something different than that. I'm not interested.
Yeah, you are.
I don't want to, yeah, so that's a challenge.
I think this is something else that I think you and I have in common, despite our vast differences. We look at it from different, very vast differences. And, but you probably don't know it as much as I do, because what you're putting out there is very sensible, and it comes from, an educated place that you can kind of, like you said, you kind of follow the evidence around in ways that are more recognizable, because a scientist would listen to what you're saying and recognize what you're referencing. I look at things a little bit unconventionally, but I am very much the same in the sense that it doesn't matter which forum we're talking about. I know that they're all taking us off into their direction of preferred subject matter and fears and enemies and heroes. And I see that as well. And that's one of the reasons why I feel as though I sit in the middle, because a lot of the most popular hosts that people like to listen to in the evening on MSNBC, for example, I feel as though I can see where they're going, which is a deliberate direction. And then on the other side, on Fox News, I can see where they're going as a deliberate direction to bring people with them. And I'm wondering, because this appears to be something that you are also very much aware of, what is your suggestion for people, for the average person who's in the middle of this big, messy environment where everything has an agenda? It doesn't matter what they listen to, they kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. And how do people cope, and how do they remain informed but detached in a way so that they can have a healthy, well-rounded understanding of where they are?
I think that you said everything has an agenda. I think those were your words. I have an agenda, and one of my biggest concerns. Right, yeah. But here's a risk that I witness, which is we like to think of ourselves as heroic skeptics. And we're really good at pointing out the biases in other people. And the quantity of people who accuse me of having a bias as if it's some rare pathology. We all have our biases. Where we stand depends on where we sit. So one of the things that's happening right now that doesn't address the question you're bringing up directly, but I'm going to get there, is I do my own research, which is not exactly research. It's not exactly skepticism. It's skepticism that tends to be skepticism about that which inconveniences me. The quantity of people, left or right, who I talk to who say the media is biased, by which they mean they're in the center, they're the gold standard, and anything to the left or right of them is biased. That's a dangerous and very natural human tendency. Let me just tie it into one thing that I pick up from the origins of life research. Organisms have to regenerate themselves, which puts us in a very iffy challenge from the start. We have to take in the energy we can use to regenerate ourselves and keep out the energy that will degenerate ourselves. And energy, for the most part, is degenerative. That is, fires don't organize things, they disorganize things. If you apply that to humans, you get confirmation bias, which is we take in the ideas that affirm us and keep out the ideas that disaffirm us, that generate our confidence, not the ones. So it's very natural. And for me, one of the big differences between decent folks of all stripes and assholes is that decent folks recognize that confirmation bias is their problem that they have to manage. And assholes or absolutists treat it like the solution to all their problems. So I am cautioning against that kind of selective heroic cynicism or skepticism that says everybody's biased but me. Once again, heart of my work is nothing human is foreign to me. Whatever others do, I do to some degree or another. And you could say all that, those years, the luxury of my life, I've had just a ridiculously dumb luck life, the safety of my life, and that those early years where I'm just looking at my shit all day in the psychoanalysis, just staring right at it, and the kind of enormment that can happen when you've had that kind of incredibly lucky opportunity to examine your own life. I see myself doing what they do, so I don't get to take that move. I don't want to do that move. My PhD's basically in bullshit detecting, but the first thing I recognize is that my bullshit detecting, it's called epistemology. It's a $10 word for bullshit detection. But the heart of it is to recognize that I would like I too need my optimal illusion, and I want to do it safely. I have to manage that appetite in me. I can't just say, I'm going to drop my ego on the count of three and let's all do that, or let's all just tolerate and love everything that everybody does. And that I'm a swell guy for doing that. I don't get to do that stuff, or at least I have no business doing that. In the meantime, what can a human do? When I'm anxious, I'm grateful that by now, at 68, I now channel it into curiosity and productivity. That's my therapy for anxiety. And the curiosity is a huge part of it. It's why I'm interested, why I started this study group, is that I was looking for curious people who recognize that we don't yet have the answers and are okay with that. I also have the advantage of 30 years I've worked with a Harvard Berkeley neuroscientist who is very comfortable saying, yeah, I'm confused about that. I don't know about that yet. I'm trying to figure it out. And most of my mentors have been like that. There was a very notable guy in the United States, a guy named Dan Ellsberg. He the Pentagon Papers, but he also founded the field of behavioral economics. 92 years old, he died a couple of years ago. That dude was curious to the bending end. He was famous in the country. The United States, we had feature movies about him, and still the guy just never stopped being curious. Amazing. Lucky for that I got to hang out with people like that.
Yeah, very lucky. Do you know, I think that one of the things that I like about what you're doing now here on your channel as well is that despite the fact that people may have certain viewpoints, may have come to certain conclusions, may lean, whether it could be religion, it could be politics, it could be anything else, psychology, it could be anything. Regardless of what it is their viewpoint is, they can watch a video of yours and just learn to be I feel a bit smarter when I watch just 7, 5, 8 minutes of video on a topic that you produce, but also you demonstrate the critical thinking element of looking at life in a way that is really concise as well. And I really like that. I do. And I also wish that I was awake at 4 o'clock in the morning, but I'm afraid, I'm busy enough already.
We may shift it just for you, love.
If people are interested in your study group, what should they do if they're interested in finding out more? Tell me a little snippet of what it is and where they can find it.
And actually, there's one last little tidbit that actually is my answer to the question of what to do with these opposite perspectives. I want to be able to put myself in anyone's shoes and remember when they were my shoes. I know what it's like to have the impulses that Stalin had. I was teaching a large class, 90 students. One of them was acting up. I wanted to shut that dude down. And I suddenly realized, there's me being Stalin, to a lesser degree, granted. Okay, at the same time, I can't possibly afford to put myself in anybody's shoes, and remember when they were mine, if it automatically translates into sympathy and charity. So I have a clutch pedal between them. And to give you an extreme example, for brevity's sake, this is not likely to happen. I'd like to be able to sit with Hitler and say and make his argument to him in a way that he says, damn, you said it better than me. I'd like to remember when they were my shoes, when I felt like that, just like I said about Stalin, and then slit his throat in cold blood. Okay, so that I need that clutch pedal.
I'll be your alibi.
It's too late. Someone else did. No, he did. He killed himself. That was a love fest that didn't end well. That was an addiction, a bad one, and it's come back because we always forget. Anyway, the study group is. It's all sorts. It's a lot of people who have just everyday blue-collar jobs, but they have parents who are Trumpists or something like that. It's not an emotional support group. We get together and it's not just about Trumpists. It's about absolutists. We're dealing with a fundamental question, what I consider the $8 billion question, 8 billion people question. How do you humbly humble people who will say or do anything to avoid human humility, human curiosity. And we assume from the start that we don't have the formula and that it's not a formula. It's actually a repertoire of different moves, and that you need to be fluent and on the fly when you do it, and that you will make mistakes. You'll think that someone's incurious when actually they're curious, or vice versa. You'll think that they're curious when they're not. And what we do is people bring to the study group an encounter they had with let's say a Trumpist, and we analyze it for what worked and what didn't work. And and so it's really a practicum. It's really applied.
I wish I was awake at 4 a.m.
Oh, don't be awake at 4 o'clock. You need your sleep.
I do. I seriously do.
But
it sounds really good. And I really love the idea of dialogue without it being just the one thing that if I'm going to be awake at 4 a.m. due to sleeplessness, it would be the division that keeps me awake because of the series of different it's just absolutism all over the place on every single subject.
Everybody got their absolutism.
It's a bit like, it's either plus or minus, 1 or 0. There doesn't seem to be anything in between. And what I really love about the concept that you've got there is that it's trying to sift through it in a way to diminish the absolutism and give rise to something different, and that other thing could be the answer, and that's why I'm really interested.
So I should also clarify this. It's not emotional support, including that it's not if I were in charge of the world or hoping for transformation. We're looking for new techniques for a particular part of the activity. We stay away from policy for the most part. We're talking about this difference between the comfortably incurious and the curious, and what to do with that in general. No matter what lifestyle brand, that's not the issue. And everybody is going to have their different perspectives. And like I say, so I mentioned the blue collar workers, but we got some wild folk in there. There's a guy who was the star of a National Geographic 2-year reality TV show, The Legend of Mick Dodge. He's a survivalist hero to a bunch of Trumpists. He's like a 73-year-old elf of a guy. And his situation is fascinating because all these people look up to him and assume he's a Trumpist. He's decidedly not, and he's trying to figure that out. He was invited to speak at the Proud Boys. We've got an FBI hostage negotiator. We've got, there's all sorts of interesting people in there, and rank means nothing to it. We're just trying to figure it out. Everybody's curious. So, and the way to get in touch is just my initials at my name. If you email me at js@jeremysherman.com, which I'm sure you'll print someplace.
I will.
And then the other thing is most of my activity, I've written 1,000 articles for Psychology Today under the name Ambigamy, Insights for the Deeply Romantic and Deeply Wary. And also Jerkology, why some people tick like, what makes some people tick like time bombs. But my main activity—
I have seen that, the Jerkology, and actually as soon as you said it, I saw a picture of it with your name in the byline, and I know I've read it. It would have been a few years ago.
That's right. There's way too much of me out there, and there's even some people who read it. I have to. Nobody else has to read my stuff. But anyway, where I'm mostly active these days is on my YouTube channel, Trying Beings, which means two things. One is we are all beings struggling for our existence, trying to stay alive, but also some of us humans are really trying. They try our patience. So that's where to get in touch with me. And the other thing is that I do this stuff nonstop. I mean, it's a Sunday, but it was a work day. I do it 7 days a week, just like you do, perhaps. There you go. Because my happiness comes from having work for which I have infinite patience, and I do that with this stuff. So I'm around. If someone's got a particular question, I also work as a consultant on the side, strategic consultant on how to deal with difficult people in your life, in your personal life. Nice. I have wonderful clients. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a coach. It's strategic consulting. Basically, how do you deal with such people?
Jeremy, you know what? I'm really glad that you added that bit as well, because I know a lot of people would probably be very interested. It has been amazing having you on the show. I'll make sure that All of your contact information, everything is in the description for today's episode. And I hope that we get to speak again. And I really am very interested in knowing your viewpoint on some of the more out there, non-traditional things that I am actually following from time to time. So perhaps one day you'll come back.
I'd be glad to. It was a delight to be with you, Ellie.
Thanks a lot. And so that was Jeremy Sherman. I really enjoyed having Jeremy on the show, and I do hope that he will return again one day soon. And perhaps I'll be able to pin him down on the whole UAP, extraterrestrial, non-human intelligence subject. We'll see. Jeremy says we don't have a lot in common at all, but I actually think we do. We just look at things from a different perspective. And you know what? Having somebody like Jeremy come onto the show helps us to understand with just another layer where we are today. Because by understanding where we are today, there's a clearer indication of what we could be in store for in the future, particularly if we stay the same as we are now. Food for thought. It's been wonderful having you join me today. My name is Ellie. You can find me on Ellie Dreams and Under on YouTube. And thank you to everyone who's listening today on one of KGRA's broadcasting platforms. If you would like to be a member of the KGRA viewership family and watch your favorite hosts with like-minded experiences and watchers and spiritualists and weirdos like me, then just go to live.kgradb.com and put in promo code Ellie to get 30% off your subscription. That's it for today. It's been a pleasure. Until next time.